remember that Joe Biden was saying that the reason that there's a border surge right now, a crisis at the border, so many people trying to come over here, to the United States from, South America, Latin American countries, is because he's a nice guy. That's what he said. It's because he's a nice guy. And of course, it's not that at all. It's because their countries have been completely destabilized by the very policies that Joe Biden has been pushing for his entire career in politics. So that we understand that's really why there's a border surge right now. But he says it's because of he's a nice guy. And recently he just came out with his defense budget. So let's take a look at that. Here we go. Breaking. Biden proposes a $753 billion Pentagon budget, a significant increase from last year's budget. Now, the budget he proposed, it was actually $715 billion to the Pentagon, but total, to the defense department, defense, industry, I guess, it's $753 billion. And so, he proposed that because, he's a nice guy. All that money that's going towards bombs, going towards defense contractors like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, all these defense contractors who get most of their revenue from government contracts. And what are those government contracts to do? To build more and more weapons. And this is year after year after year after year. We spend almost 60%, maybe more, of our total discretionary spending every year goes to the military. And we understand because we understand history. History repeats itself. The reason empires fall is because they overextend militarily, right? So as all this money year after year after year is going towards making new fighter jets that, are over $1 trillion program that end up failing and they have to completely scrap. I think it was the F-35 or F-31 or whatever that was. That fighter jet program that completely failed. Spent over $1 trillion on it, just completely failed. Which were jets that they didn't even need because they already had a bunch from before, right? So we understand that's why empires fall. So while all that is happening, that money is not going towards education. That money is not going towards housing the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of homeless people in this country. That money is not going towards actually providing health care to people in this country. That money is not going towards actually rebuilding the infrastructure of this country. That's almost $1 trillion every year. And it is over $1 trillion because there's certain money that's not accounted for in the budget that we can't see as the public, which in and of itself, right, is not just, right? We should be able to see where every single one of those dollars is going. And so we understand that. It's not because Joe Biden is a nice guy. Joe Biden is not a nice guy. You don't propose that budget if you're a nice guy. You know what you do if you're a nice guy? You actually provide for your citizens, especially in a crisis like right now. So we all understand that. And here's the defense budget from when Barack Obama was president. So this is 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, it was still bloated because we're spending more than the next 10 countries combined on something that does not go directly towards helping our citizens. It does not actually go towards investing in the future of our citizens. So back when Obama was president, it was here we go, $582 billion the last year he was president. That's how much the defense budget was then. That's 4 or 5 years ago. Now, $753 billion, right? So how much of an increase is that going? Is that going towards education? Is that going towards housing? Is that going towards any program that is actually going to help the people right here in this country as everything is falling apart around us? As COVID showed that we have a bunch of real crises in this country, particularly the fact that most people can't even afford $400, $500 emergency. They can't afford their health care. They can't afford their housing. Middle class is now being squeezed out of the housing market completely. So all these things are happening. And Joe Biden, the nice guy, that's what he's proposing. And, before you say, inflation is a thing. And so, obviously the dollars aren't exactly the same. Well, look here. Let's take a look at this. Value of this is $582 billion. This is what Barack Obama proposed in 2017 and what it is to 2021 dollars. So $624 billion. So it is more. It's about, what is that? $42 billion more. So Why is Joe Biden not? If Trump was so bad, such a bad guy, made all these horrible decisions, why doesn't Joe Biden put the budget back to what it was like under Barack Obama, which was still too much, still way too much, still unbelievably horrible use of funds, bad priorities. It shows where our priorities lie in this country. But why doesn't he just put it back towards that? It's because it doesn't matter who the president is. It does not matter. Republican, Democrat, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, George Bush. It doesn't matter. Every single year, the defense budget will balloon. Every single year. And for the defense contractors and everyone in the defense industry to keep getting funded to the tune of that much money, they have to actually spend all of that money, because we understand how a budget works. If you have a surplus, then Congress is going to be like, oh, I guess they don't actually need all that money. So they have to make sure they spend every single dime of that every single year. And it's going to balloon every single year. So that's $130 billion difference between if he just put it back to Obama era levels versus now. What do you think that $130 billion could do? End homelessness altogether in this country? Oh, yeah, for sure. $130 billion. You throw it towards that. You actually build affordable housing. You could end homelessness. You could end hunger in the country. You could actually provide tuition-free college, for a lot of the people who are priced out of college right now because they can't afford it and they don't want to take on tens of thousands, if not $100,000 worth of debt. There's a lot of money, or there's a lot of things you could do with that money. But Joe Biden's such a nice guy. So we shouldn't pressure him or anything to actually step up and provide for the citizens of this country when everyone is in need, right? Because when Trump was president, this is what Bernie tweeted when Trump was president. Pompeo told Congress the Saudis were protecting civilians as they bombed Yemen. So even when it comes to the Saudis, we saw what happened with Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter who got dismembered and was ordered by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And what did Joe Biden, when he was campaigning, said he was going to actually hold them accountable. And then we found out that he's not going to do anything. So he's going to just let that happen. Our closest ally, Saudi Arabia, he's just going to allow that to happen. Trump issued a fake emergency to keep selling bombs. I mean, is Joe Biden not doing the same thing? I mean, he's building up tensions with Iran, building up tensions with China, building up tensions with Russia. That sounds like selling some type of fake emergency, like we're actually at threat, but militarily, of any of those countries who spend maybe 10%. I think China is the closest, probably spends 20% year over year on what we spend on our military. So there's no military emergency there. In fact, there's an economic emergency because China's kicking our ass economically. But we're not going to put any money towards manufacturing. We're not going to put any money towards actually trying to compete. We're not going to do that. We're going to just put it all towards a fake emergency to keep selling bombs, right? Just like Trump was doing. So here's the new boss, right? Same as the old one. A Raytheon lobbyist became Secretary of Defense. That sounds a lot like Lloyd T. Austin, who is the current Secretary of Defense under Joe Biden, who's also from Raytheon. He literally just came from the Raytheon board. And he still had Raytheon stocks when he became the Secretary of Defense. And on top of that, guess what? Raytheon gets approved for over $200 or $300 million of arms sales immediately. That seems a little fishy, right? That seems like a pay-to-play scheme and operation. Bernie continues to say thousands of Yemenis died. Raytheon profits went up. Well, that's still happening right now. Joe Biden's not doing anything about, the Saudi blockade of Yemen, which is, projected to maybe cause 400,000 kids to die by the end of this year if we don't do something about it. So that seems like a continuation of the same policy. So I don't understand how in this situation, especially when it comes to foreign policy, how Joe Biden is a lesser of two evil, especially considering right now, Bernie isn't tweeting the same thing, right? You see some progressives speaking up about it, but you don't see, the media, you don't see, all this outrage over what's going on with Joe Biden, but you did see it with Donald Trump. So in essence, it's actually, he has more free reign to do whatever he wants, sell all these weapons to Saudi Arabia, which then go on to kill children in Yemen. There's free reign to do that now. So I don't see how Biden in this situation is a lesser evil. It almost seems like he's a greater evil in this particular scenario. And so I saw this on Twitter the other day, and I think it's important to share it because Ilhan Omar actually came out because there's a hunger strike going on to fight back against the Saudi blockade of Yemen, which is causing widespread famine within Yemen right now, which we're assisting Saudi Arabia with. This is what Ilhan Omar had to say, fighting back tears because of what's going on right now in Yemen. Let's take a look at that.
12 days of a hunger strike is long. And everybody can imagine just how much your health and well-being is impacted. And I do hope that those who are watching and seeing realize that the longer that you all are on a hunger strike, the longer that there are people actually dying in Yemen.
She's spot on. She's spot on. And that's the real reality. That's the real truth. And she was a refugee from Somalia, which we're also, I don't know if we still are, but I know previously under the last administration and under Obama, we were bombing Somalia as well. So she understands this. Also, Rashida Tlaib, she understands how bloated this military budget is. This is what she says. $750 billion for aiding death and destruction is immoral and sick. I agree. Instead, we should spend the money to help end homelessness, $20 billion. Free 4-year public education, $50 billion. $50 billion for childcare is Essential Act. $31 billion to fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's where that money could be going. Instead, Joe Biden, who has the power to actually decide the federal budget when it comes to defense, what he's going to do is he's going to throw all that money, instead of throwing it to actually improving the lives of people in this country, he's going to throw it to the defense industry. So my ask, and I think a lot of us as progressives, as we understand what's going on in this country and we understand where this money could be going, and we actually see and grasp the gravity of the crises that are going on in this country, I say, if you're going to go out there and be upset about it, like you should, then get a coalition of people together within government and actually fight back against this. Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna had a bill in the last Congress that I'm pretty sure got to, about stopping funding the war in Yemen, that actually got to Trump's desk. Now, I believe he vetoed it, but Joe Biden's the president now. So I think, and Democrats have a full majority in Congress. So why is that? Why has that bill not been signed immediately? Why has that? I don't know if it's been reintroduced, but it definitely has not been signed because we're continuing to help with that genocide in Yemen. So when are we going to start seeing some of that? See, because the time is now. The time is now for this stuff to actually happen. You don't want to wait 2-4 years when, it's either a split Congress or there's a Republican president, and then you're going to start complaining again why this stuff is still going on. Stuff, like the genocide in Yemen or these bloated military budgets. The time is now. You have the ability to act right now, because right now what it looks like is here's the new boss, Joe Biden, and he's just the same as the old.